And it looks like we have a quorum. So uh, why don't we start? Because I am fairly committed to finishing by 8 o'clock. So in the aftermath of Nina's presentation, I've gotten more obsessive about following guidelines. So I'm going to read the intro. Following the guidance issued by the Commonwealth in March of 23 regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing Zoom video conferencing technology. So let me do a roll call to begin. Nina,
Here.
Gavin,
Here.
Kevin,
Yes, here.
Marty,
Here.
Simone,
Here.
and Mish.
Here.
And there's someone on the phone, but I don't know who it is.
Hi, it's Sarah. I'm
Hi,
stuck
Sarah.
on the Pike traffic driving.
Oh my goodness. All right, don't get in an accident.
I won't.
Okay. And I'm here. So we certainly have a quorum. Uh, so did people get a chance to look at the minutes that Michelle sent? Looks like Simone is saying no. Uh, anyone else did or didn't?
I did, yeah.
I did.
Did. Great. Marty, did you?
Yeah, I did.
All right. We have enough to vote on it, it looks like. So I would certainly entertain a motion to accept the minutes unless there are suggestions, corrections that people want to make.
I will make a motion to accept the minute.
Okay, great.
Second.
Second, great. Nina,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Sarah,
I
Gavin,
Yes.
Marty.
Yes.
Simone, have you had a chance to look through them enough to vote?
No, I'll abstain.
You want to abstain? Okay,
Yeah.
Mish.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm a yes. Great. So I had three things on the agenda for this meeting, and then at the end, I just want to talk about kind of next steps. So the first thing I thought we should talk about were the key performance indicators we selected for our own committee at the last meeting. And to remind people, increasing attendance at open hearing, getting other departments, boards to identify KPIs and our free cash position. So I thought what we could talk about was how we wanted both to first to measure our KPIs, and second, how we were going to go about as a group uh, improving our performance. So maybe we could start with open hearing. Thoughts about how to measure attendance?
I mean, other than counting the people there?
Well, uh, having only been at open hearing 3 times the last 3 years, I would say the attendance is often in flux. People are kind of arriving and departing.
Ah,
So, do we count the total number of people who come through the door? Do we count the people at some specific point in time, like the when the meeting starts, 20 minutes into it, people who stick it out to the very end? Uh,
And is it also it's live streamed as well, right?
I
Or is
don't,
it just, or is it recorded and posted
it,
later?
recorded and posted later.
DC Dover cable TV doesn't do it live.
Not that I recall. That's not to say that we couldn't uh, actually encourage that to happen, but
Mhm. Mhm.
my recollection is it's posted afterwards.
Okay.
Forget, do you have to do you have to tell the table your name and address?
When you enter,
Yeah.
I actually don't recall.
I
I
don't
don't think
believe
so.
so. Not an open hearing.
I think people just wander in.
Okay.
We could ask people to sign in. That wouldn't be unreasonable. I don't know how enthusiastic Felicia would be about identifying someone to do it. Usually, I think she shows up, but I'm not sure any other staff are there.
How long does the meeting generally go for? I must admit, I've never sat through a full open hearing meeting.
With some justification, Gavin.
That just proves you're sane.
Yeah. Um, I would say it can be it can be as little as an hour and a quarter to 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Uh, the I think it often depends on what the articles are that are on the docket that are controversial.
Mhm.
I'm pretty confident that the Fuel Island will generate a substantial amount of discussion, both at open hearing and at um, uh, town meeting. So that could have an impact on how long things go.
Truth be told, I'm generally keep it simple if at all possible. So I would say rather than worrying about who's attending when or time, it's just anybody who comes through the door, let's have count. It makes it super simple, whether
Yeah.
they stay there for 5 minutes or 2.5 hours.
That I think that's also mission like appropriate because it doesn't. We're just trying to have people connect with information. So
Yeah.
if they take the information they want, they can leave whenever they're done. As long if in 5 minutes they get what they need, we've still succeeded. That it seems to me as a performance indicator, we've still we've still achieved that. Could we just have someone with a clicker? I mean, can we get a volunteer with a clicker just to click people, the click number keepers? We've done that at school events before, and it's sort of a low lift ask of someone.
Yep. I can ask Felicia. I'm sure that there's a clicker that we could find somewhere.
Woody, is there a history of how many people have attended prior years' meetings? So there's some measure of more or less than
Uh,
what was coming before.
So I don't believe so, Marty. I don't think anyone has ever counted the number of people who attend the open hearing.
So it really won't be meaningful till we have 2 years worth of meetings, right?
We
Well,
could,
I think it'll be meaningful to see where we are as a baseline, but our efforts to improve things will only be measurable after the first couple of years.
we'll have a measure for the YouTube views for past years
For
YouTube
past
views.
years, they're able to generate that kind of that'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I agree with Gal. I mean, when I went last year, I mean, I think it was like we're talking 70 people, maybe. I don't even know.
I,
There's not a lot.
I'd be surprised if it was
Yeah.
more than 40, honestly.
So I mean, like I think a pretty easy count when the meeting starts for butts and seats, and then somebody keeps an eye on the door to see if anybody else wanders in.
Yep. Okay, I'll talk to Felicia then about whether or not we can generate a clicker. And we don't care if people are registered voters or town residents. We're not going to track that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine with me.
And just to make sure I'm understanding the point of this metric, it's really how involved is the town in the participation in the process is the goal. we want the town to be more involved, all things being equal, the citizenry involved in the discussion?
Yeah, I think that's the goal.
Okay.
As things currently stand, the attendance at town meeting is mostly less than 5% of the town's residents. So that a tiny fraction of the eligible town residents are making the decisions around kind of how the town functions. It feels as though it would be desirable if a greater percentage of people were engaged in the process and understood the process. And that also think one of the goals of open hearing is to engage people around the articles so that they can get questions answered in an interactive way before town meeting. So that the some of the questions that come up at town meeting are probably better dealt with in a somewhat less formal setting. And it feels as though open hearing is a great opportunity to do that. Um,
Woody,
it's
if I
useful
can
for us.
jump,
Yep, go ahead.
sorry, I wanted to add, if I could jump in. I think for open hearing, the variability of the length really, the residents really only attend when the article affects them. And obviously the long meetings naturally create that turnover. My 2 cents for primary KPI for open hearing would be different than town meeting due to, I think peak attendance probably best captures that public interest, not the endurance of the meeting. Whereas town, obviously, folks are coming, we're meeting quorum, we're reaching the voting aspect of it, and they're attending, again, best for controversial topics and what that may warrant in terms of discussion. So I don't know if it's helpful to maybe add specific language if we're looking for a KPI, something to the effect of attendance peaked at 62 residents during discussion of Article 17, just for example, Fuel Island, in preparation for meeting prep. And then it avoids the arguments as to who stayed for unrelated items.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments?
I guess I just am concerned that the attendance at those meetings, Woody, how much can the warrant committee impact that one way or the other versus what Sarah just referenced? A lot of that attendance is going to be driven by self-interest or general interest in some particular controversial item that somebody's going to attend, right? Does that make sense?
I think that's probably generally true, but although I think there certainly are people who come uh, with a more general interest in what the budget is going to end up looking like.
But over time, the variability that I think is going to be the true measure of this KPI is going to be impacted more by other factors than what the warrant committee does, I would expect.
Hmm. So
Probably.
I know that there's the obligation to send out the mailer of the notice of the meeting. Have there been other ways to advertise the meeting or should we try to deploy other ways if they haven't been exploited, like signs at the community center,
Mhm.
signs at the center of town, increasing awareness?
Well, I think you're correct that there's a notice that goes out. I do think Chris put it in the newsletter last year and actually did a little description of what open hearing was, but the reality is not much effort has gone into either announcing it or making it relevant to people. I suspect most people don't know the purpose of open hearing.
I think we all received some sort of communication, like a letter from the town about the open hearing. Because I remember having this conversation with Robin Hunter in one of our meetings. Um, I would say that one thing that might work is to consider if we can start the meeting with a quorum without having to wait for people to get there. It's probably like the most relevant thing, the ability to actually get people to show up independent of the number. So I think in the end, it's like it doesn't really matter if we have 176 people or 300. We actually need to get the meeting started.
So you're referring to town meeting, not to open hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the open, I think the open hearing. It's very complicated. I think Sarah summarized pretty well. If it's something that it's very dear or controversial for whatever reason, people will go. And if it's not, why bother?
But I'll make the comment of, I think regardless of the volatility from year to year, based on whatever the articles, if the goal is to have greater participation and transparency, we should see a trend over time. And if we see no trend over a multi-year period of time, we're either not advertising, we're not engaging, everything else like that. Hopefully we do see, and I think we just need to be prepared, as Marty said, that there will be a lot of volatility in this measure. But if the impetus is to look at multi-year trend, it doesn't invalidate it. It's just something that we need to be cautious about. So if we see a spike, don't get too confident in it. And if it's a plunge, let's make sure we're looking at the multi-year trend.
Yeah.
I mean, the weather could affect it too,
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, if it's
Yeah,
a
there
horrible
are all
night, people
kinds
are going to stay
of
home.
factors like that. But I always thought of open hearing as obviously a chance for you guys to do due diligence, but also a dry run. So if people are too long, they now know that and have to bring it down. You can make suggestions to them about their presentations, both in content, form, etc., to help those who are bringing articles forth to make it better. Um, and it also obviously it's due diligence for our two committees, and then to find out what are the issues. We don't want the surprise on town meeting floor. And so by asking all the warrant sponsors to go and present, it's again, to me, it's just a dry run for town meeting with the ability to do some real due diligence, because often the warrant committee doesn't get all the information until 24 hours or less before open hearing.
Hopefully that won't be true this year, but that certainly has been true in the past.
So
Other thoughts about things that might be done to improve the attendance or participation?
I
Well,
think
yeah,
as
well,
Dave
go ahead. Yeah.
highlighted, it's a great vehicle in that it enables boards like ours and committees to explain rationale, costs, risks, trade-offs, and certainly identifying misunderstandings or refining warrant articles or recommendations. But I think if we're looking to create greater attendance, it also needs to be more widely publicized. This is a public forum for residents to receive the information and to ask questions, as well as expressing their views on the matters under consideration before the decision is made. I think if folks understood that this is an opportunity, stripped of its jargon, open hearing alone sounds fairly litigious, but I think if we reemphasized its purpose is listening and not deciding, that could very well be a vehicle to incentivize attendance.
And thoughts about how we might reach residents about the value of attending open hearing.
I think we should talk to Suzanne, right? I think that's her wheelhouse, isn't it?
Yep.
And so we could meet with her and ask her and see, and see what she can do, how we can integrate this into the other town communications.
Yep.
If any, when I was curious about before I joined the Warrant Committee. I posted actually on the Dover Facebook page asking someone to help me to understand. And I think back then, either like 22 or 29 people actually raised their hands saying that they were interested. And I don't know if this could be a way to do it. It's, post something like that. There's a session to explain the importance of attending the open hearing or the town meeting, things like that, that the warrant committee could do either face to face in the town meeting or the community center, the town hall and the community center, or even like posting more on the Dover webpage that the residents actually look, not the official town one, but at the Dover webpage. Unfortunately, when we actually had the whole discussion there from all the 20 plus people that raised their hands, only 3 people show up for the explanation, which shows the difficulty of coordinating the schedules and things like that. But it was enough to convince me to join the Warrant Committee, and I think it was really good to understand. So maybe exposing a little bit more to the general population could be a way to go.
Does that violate any of the bylaws, not bylaws, but the criteria for meetings if you post on Facebook for that Nina had in her slides?
I don't think so, as long as we're not discussing the actual content. If we're talking about what open hearing is, I don't think there's a problem.
And where and when.
Yep.
Yeah, that's factual information. There's no debate involved.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we agree that this is a KPI, then yeah, I think we just have to come up with a list of 8 or 10 activities that we can all kind of participate in. Where somebody can make sure there's it's in the town email newsletter, or I think we could have Marty stand with a big bell on the town green, like the town crier, for weeks leading up to it.
He actually volunteered to do that.
That's right. That's right. But listen, I would be willing to sit like at a table for a couple hours on a Saturday at the transfer station, right? I mean, that's a place where everybody's going, just to sit there and say, "Hey, town meeting's coming up" or something. I mean, or a table at the play at the high school, or you just put some flyers up. I mean, we would just have to come up with like a marketing campaign and just execute on it just to see if it has any effect. But um,
Well, why don't I reach out to Suzanne and see if she'd be willing to attend our next meeting, and she might talk about what thoughts that she has had about reaching out to residents, because there are a variety of things that she's kind of working on now for. Dave, she's doing something around the stormwater management, right?
right.
Yes, going out on the tax bills.
So, and looking at what she prepared for that was pretty elegant looking. So I think she might have some good thoughts about uh, materials to prepare and ways to distribute them. So why don't I reach out to her about the next warrant committee meeting is going to be January 7th. I think that's the first
Yeah.
available Wednesday in January. So I'll try and schedule her for then.
And I'm sorry, is she our new communications person?
She's the communication person under Chris Costello.
Okay. It's relatively new though, right?
Yeah, just a few
Yeah.
months into the
Okay.
job.
She came from Board of Health, but yes.
Okay.
And Woody said it well. I mean, she can make whatever you're trying to do, she can make it look really good.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so the other KPIs that we talked about were uh, helping the department's boards identify their own KPIs. That was one that we talked about. That has gone out in the guidance letter. So each of the departments uh, has heard about this. When Chris and Michael got everyone together at the community center, this was a topic that they discussed. I don't know how much people have had interactions during their liaison meetings around KPIs, but I do know that at least some of the different department heads have been thinking about what they're going to do. So one thought for us is just how we're going to facilitate that process beyond what we've already done.
I have a question. When I met with the planning board, I talked to them about the KPIs, and one question they had was the metric, could the metric be retroactive from last year? And I wanted to verify what we thought about that.
I'm not quite sure what they mean.
I think so, if we do a KP, if they want to submit KPIs by May, so it's their activity, would it only be their activity from, say, September through May? Or can they, I think they really wanted to include a lot about the achievement of the zoning regulation, the Community Act. So, as a productivity measures. But I wasn't sure how we were going to actually define the metric from,
Yep. Thoughts?
I mean, I think that anyone that wants to bring something that happened this year or even previous years, you can use this as a baseline, but it still doesn't, to show progression, you have to compare apples and apples. If they don't have another meeting that needs to get all the community on board, then they are reporting a success, but it's not a KPI to measure how they progress over the years.
I mean, I'll say for some of the departments I've talked with, or at least I was assigned for, I think some will have whatever the KPIs they come up with, they'll have historical data that they can use. I think some it will be on a go forward basis. And I think for at least for this year, we should have in my opinion, we should give the departments full flex. If you have historical data, fantastic. If you don't, that's fine. You just need to start tracking on a go forward basis. I do have I do think it is important as they think about the KPIs for it to be a KPI that's not just a one-off KPI,
Yeah.
but something that measures something that we care about that we'd want to know every year. So if it really was related to one specific vote or something else like that, I'd be questioning them or at least be pushing them to say, hey, is this actually a good indicator of efficacy, whatever, from a long term, not just for this past year, but on a go forward basis? Because I think the point of the KPIs is for us to think about enduring things that we care about for being able to measure and track and evaluate the performance of those departments.
Yeah, that would be my sense. If what they're just trying to do is persuade us they did a good job prepping the vote around the MBTA Communities Act. I mean, that a lot of people have given them praise for the way they handled it. I thought they did a very good job, but that's not a key performance indicator. A key performance indicator might be something like how long it takes them to do a site plan review.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't think they were confining just to that, but they wanted, yeah. But I think the idea of, to Gavin's point, is giving some flex in this first year of having some retrospective data is fair.
Yep. Any other thoughts about how best to facilitate this?
I think we have to accept the fact that this is a learning exercise. There's a little bit of a learning curve here this first year, and the people who are most knowledgeable about what the KPI should be are the people that work in those particular groups. So there'll be
Yep.
some give and take. And I think in the case of the planning board, I would expect what you just referenced, all the activity on that MBTA Communities Act took up a lot of resources and time. And in the end, they were successful. And I think doing what everybody should be happy with. And they should put that out there as one of the efforts that they see as something good.
Yeah,
Even though it's non-recurring, Woody, right? There's probably going to be a lot of things like that that happen in these different departments.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, that what we're looking are things that measure their performance over time. And if there were a way for them to distill the activity around the MBTA Communities Act, um, that they did in a measurable way that then might translate into future activities around other articles that they propose or something like that. That would be a
more
legitimate
meaningful. Yeah,
quality measure to
Yeah.
track.
Yeah, they could benchmark themselves against some group of cities. Every city or town, I think, in the Commonwealth had to go through that, and
Yep.
I think we came out in a good place relative to the ones that
yeah,
didn't.
that's a good point I can raise with them.
Other thoughts? So my own personal bias about this is that this the our greatest leverage is through the liaison activity. Um, the the one of the as Nina's suggesting that one of the things we can do as liaisons is just check in with the department heads or the board chairs about what they're thinking about a KPI and how they're uh, what problems they see obtaining data, what problems they see presenting or following things over time. I don't think we have to solve all their problems, but I think one of the things that the liaisons could do in January is check in with people about what they're thinking they're going to track and what problems they think they're going to encounter. And again, I don't think we have to solve all those problems, but we may help them figure out where to go to get problems solved.
Yeah, that's, and I guess we're how much when they present to us, um, that's maybe an opportunity too to like just say, hey, maybe go back and sharpen your pencil on the KPI or something like that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah,
I, hopefully they've had some conversation about what it is they're going to track and how they're going to use the data beforehand, either with us or with Chris or Michael.
yeah.
But uh, but I think it should be one of the things that we're kind of assessing at the time of the reviews to give feedback about what they've decided on and suggestions about how they might think differently about things, or hopefully praise the choice.
Now, is this something that like will we include in the blue book like, hey, we're developing a scorecard or something, and here's the inaugural list of KPIs and how we're doing that we can track over time?
I don't know if we'll be ready to include it in the Blue Book this year. I hope it could go into the Warrant Committee report in the Blue Book the following year, though. Seems to me it'd be that by then we'd have some data to include and some kind of uh, experience with what people are doing. So absolutely, it feels like, alternatively, or in a supplementary way, it may be something that we should be reporting on in the newsletter. Uh, as uh, one of the things the Warrant Committee has helped to achieve. Other thoughts? Okay, last one was the free cash. And I guess the question is, as a committee, we don't kind of influence the amount of free cash particularly directly. It's certainly something that we review uh, as part of the budget. Um, it's the decisions being made by the select board and the town administrator, though, as to how free cash is utilized in a variety of ways, based in part on kind of written policies, but also kind of how things are tracking. So I'm not. One of the challenges with a metric like this is just how our impact on it is pretty indirect.
So are you suggesting we don't include that as a KPI, right?
Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I'm saying that I think if we're going to, we're going to have to think pretty seriously about how best to achieve it, or how what it is that we're doing in our uh, in the mission of the Warrant Committee. Uh, how do we see the free cash position as being a reflection of our activity? You know, uh, uh, our kind of mission is to make recommendations to town residents around about the articles that form the warrant, and both provide background and information, but also make recommendations about how people vote at town meeting. In that sense, there certainly are votes about how free cash is used at town meetings. So how we recommend about that can have an impact. Most of the decision about or the decision making about how free cash is utilized, though, is occurring kind of upstream of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was wondering about like why would we think that's an important metric? Or I don't know, Gavin, were you the one that proposed maybe thinking about this? I mean, I guess I know no well, go ahead. Gavin. Oh, I have technical difficulties. I guess obviously, I think in any kind of a corporate sector, free cash flow is a great thing to have.
Yep.
I mean, we could underfund our schools and run them into the ground and have a great free cash flow balance. I don't know if that's necessarily the spirit of what we're trying. In some ways, I think if there's a lot of cash floating around beyond reserves for future capital expenses, then we should be reinvesting that into the town anyway.
Right. And there are guidelines that the state has about how much free cash a town should maintain, how much uh, uh, cash reserves that the town should have. We more than meet that. We exceed it by quite a bit right now.
Right,
I,
right.
I don't know what the anticipated free cash level is going to be this year. Do you, Dave?
I don't know that yet, but I do know that the selectmen several boards ago put in a free cash policy, which currently recommends that we have a level below what the state recommends.
Right.
So that is something that we wish to revisit pretty early on, because if the state says you should have a range of A to B, why would we buck that state recommendation?
Right.
So,
Can you guys hear me? This is Gavin. I'm on my cell phone now. I had to chauffeur my kids.
Yes.
Okay, great. No, I suggested free cash, more trying to figure out if there's a way for us to identify some measure of either fiscal prudence or we're doing a good job. Um, I agree it's probably a crude measure, and so maybe there is an alternative financial metric, or maybe it's a basket of financial metrics. I'd probably defer to those who've been a little bit more involved over the years. in order to try to identify whether there's something that might be a better alternative. I'm just thinking of if we're doing a good job as a warrant committee, we're helping ensure that the town has got a good financial footing. So, what is the best way for us to kind of measure or reinforce? Are we doing a good job?
Well, I guess
Especially because there's probably a few qualitative aspects to it.
my understanding, and I may be wrong on this, is the movement in free cash flow for the town is really going to be predicated on decisions made outside of the warrant committee and value decisions in terms of whether to add or draw down on free cash over time. And either of those decisions can be good or bad, right? And we can weigh in on it, but ultimately it's not our decision. And to try to get at what you're describing, Gavin, I wonder if an alternative might be the preservation of, I'll say, a high credit rating. I think it's AAA now, but maybe it's double A, preservation at least a minimum of double A, if that's a better measure. But if the town can preserve that kind of credit rating, that says a lot beyond the free cash flow, because that's not the only measure that Moody's or S&P is going to look at to determine that AAA rating.
Moody's and S&P will also look at the reserves and the amount of those reserves, including OPEB. And I can tell you, since we had to fight to get our rating back recently, that those were definite strengths that we stood out above almost everyone.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
so
balance sheet strength beyond just free cash flow that they're looking at.
correct. And that's what that's what they want to see as well. I mean, some towns literally have virtually none of their OPEB liabilities covered.
Yeah.
And fortunately, all of our predecessors did not put us in that position. We're in a position of strength.
Yeah.
I mean, adding an extra layer of complexity, I'd also be thinking through the lens of affordability. It's great to be financially prudent and have a balanced budget, but other aspects that we should be considering. This is where it gets to it's really potentially complicated. There might not be one magic KPI, so it might be something to punt to future years. As we think about what's the best way in order to try to encapsulate a multi-faceted perspective.
Would a good measure be what the percent of the budget increases are on a rolling forward basis, maybe a 3 or 5 year? Because one of the stated goals that we're all trying to do is smooth out the tax increases. We don't want to see big years up, big years down. Just keep it smooth as best of our ability.
Would that just be the operating budget, Dave, or would it include the capital budget as well? That trend that we'd look at.
I think it would be two separate trends that should be identified because the pattern in this town is we do everything that needs to be done, and then we just do nothing for 15 or 20 years, and then we have to redo everything all over again.
Yeah.
So to force ourselves to literally have this capital plan and the discipline to address things
Yeah.
as we go,
Yeah.
so we don't end up behind the 8 ball and say, sorry, we need X fire trucks and Y highway trucks and
Yeah.
17 culverts.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. The on the capital budget though, until there's some type of forecast that's tied back to the capital needs of the town, you're always going to have that volatility that nobody wants. And so that's why I try to distinguish, do we tie the KPI just to the operating budget, which we have much more visibility and understanding at this point anyway, versus the capital budget that is subject to the kinds of environment that you just described. That things just sort of it's on an as needed basis as opposed to saying
Right.
here's our plan and this is how it's going to stair step over time.
I still remember the town meeting when this poor individual had to stand up and say, that building, meaning the old highway garage, is going to last for another 50 to 100 years. About 3 weeks later, it was flatter than a pancake. To his credit, the following town meeting, he was just kidding. So, um, I think the capital needs to be worked on, and it is our hope that the study from the Collins Center is going to literally jumpstart it. We should have a capital plan from the Collins Center that we all can uh, dig into, and I'm sure there's going to be tweaks that are necessary, but it should be, that's the whole point of having that starting plan. What are we not thinking about? What are committees not thinking about because it's just not on their wheelhouse? Roofs, new windows, that type of thing. And work that in within the equipment, and we suddenly have a plan, and you could measure against that. Because if we need to spend X millions of dollars over Y years, well, how are we doing?
Plus, we don't have to have three KPIs, right? In this first year, we could settle on two as the warrant committee. Woody,
You're muted, Woody.
Woody, you are on mute.
You're still on mute.
So what I was saying is it is perfectly acceptable to have just two. Agree with Kevin. If we're going to have a third, making the operating budget alone without the capital budget would probably make sense until the recommendations of the Collins Center are codified and implemented. But I'm fine either way, just going with two or adding the operating budget as an indicator. Sense from people?
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
Perhaps not as a KPI then this year of maybe it should be an important priority for the warrant committee to figure out what it means for, I mean, what our sort of financial objective, what we would consider success long term would be from a financial perspective for the town, because it does seem like there are a lot of different elements
yeah.
coming together. And so maybe it isn't a KPI for this year. It's more of a process, a goal that the warrant committee has in order to develop some sort of framework for us to assess that, in the hopes of perhaps a KPI does come out of it long term, or maybe it's just a best practice that we try to develop.
I think I'd support that and do it not as a formal KPI this year, but try and do a review as a group of what we think uh, the approach a reasonable approach would be for the town to setting guidelines as to what are re realistic kind of practices in terms of the town budget. It does. I think there's a lot of concern this year about what the size of the increase is going to be. I don't know that we uh, have a clear read on what an acceptable increase is, though, apart from the limits of Prop 2.5, um, which seem which seem increasingly unrealistic. I don't think we know is a 4% increase out of line, is a 3% increase out of line, and how do we decide relative to the rate of inflation and other things? So it does seem like that would be a good long-term discussion for the committee to have. All right, so for now we'll go with two. And I don't want to drag this meeting out forever. I think we'll talk about the format of the departmental presentations at the next meeting, which, as I said, is going to be January 7th. I did want to talk about just open things for liaison reports and talk about what the liaisons' jobs are going to be for the next month or so. So any news that people have from their interactions around as liaisons?
I spoke with the Council of Aging. Their budget, their ask, it's to increase in roughly 10% their budget, mostly, well, is headcount. It's actually moving people who are part-time to increase their hours, and mostly driven by the activities at the community center and everything else that is happening with them. Other than that, their overall, like their expenditure operating budget, actually it's an increase of $1,600, but they have this $34,000 in headcount. There's some moving parts that Janet was explaining to me, something like that they call like the formula grant, where they might have some flexibility to move some instructors that are today sitting on the budget and move them to this formula. But it will be a very small impact to that. When I spoke with them, I also made a recommendation that they can explain a little bit more of what are the consequences. If this money is not available, what will not happen next year? I think that this would help a little bit to make the decisions, particularly when you look to, departments like the Council of Aging, that is such a small percentage of the overall budget for the town. Sometimes one cut impacts much more than in other areas. I thought that this would be helpful for them. I think they have very good potential KPIs because they track a lot of data. They know how many programs that they deliver. We actually had a discussion about the work that they do, the outreach to the community, which is very much invisible in general for many reasons, including for HIPAA reasons. But there's a lot of work that is put behind the scenes to make sure that individuals who need support and assistance will get that and will have the right support. So I told them that could be also interesting to bring this to the table and make more visible as they present their budget and find ways to explain a little bit more what the Council of Aging does. They said that they have data showing that the number of seniors or people aging in place here in Dover is growing. So now it seems that it's more than 25% of the population. So they feel that there's been way more work to do, and that's why they are proposing this increase, particularly on the head count or the hours that some people would need to do to keep everything happening. And I have some information, and then I don't know if we are using still the Google Drive to upload those files.
Which files?
Like the budget that they gave me, a copy.
You could certainly upload it to the Google to the Drive. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have the Council of Aging. I also spoke with the library. They actually have already a budget reduction of roughly 1.1% in total, with the flag that they don't have their final number in terms of headcount or all the salary benefits and so on. The town has not given them the very final number, so everything can change from day to night. I discussed a lot with Bethany about KPIs they have. We know that they are really good tracking on this as well. But I also told her the same thing that I told the Council of Aging. I'm like, if you actually have to come with a bigger budget reduction, what would be affected? And I think that she's actually somehow comfortable that this, they could go even up to like 3% if the worst comes to worst. But the main risk is to lose the certification. And that would be a big problem for the town because you lose state aid, you lose the ability to actually borrow from other libraries. She gave the example that like Wellesley will not let you borrow anything if you are not certified. So there are consequences if we actually mess up to a certain level with the library. But they are a really, tight ship. I think that Bethany and the whole group there is doing a really good job from all we saw last year and the conversations that I had with her this year. In addition to that, the cemetery, they don't have anything. This is exactly what Mariah said to me, like, we are not going to the Warrant Committee asking for anything. The Board of Health, I had to cancel the meeting with them, needs to be rescheduled. And tomorrow we have scheduled a meeting with the Minutemen to discuss their part of the budget. The animal control hasn't responded to my attempt to reach out to them. And then Nina and I met with the planning, but I think Nina have already covered like the most important aspects. That's all from my side.
Great. Any other information people have? I'll just say there was a capital budget meeting last week, the first one we've had this fall. And there's a meeting tomorrow night at which Chris was sick for the meeting last week, so the information was relatively skimpy. I would say that the DPW is asking for an awful lot. Kevin's got maybe 15 different individual requests. The big one that stands out that is, I think everybody's aware of, is the fuel island, which I think people are now estimating at around 1.7 million. The Board of Selectmen voted on the site of the fuel island placement at the last meeting, not on whether or not to go ahead, but on which site to identify, and the site that the consultant side had recommended, which is in the back of the lot, was accepted. But I do think that's obviously going to be the most controversial um, uh, capital request. The somewhat surprising is that Parks and Rec is requesting, I think, 600,000 for the playground renovation, which is about what I think had been indicated before. But they are also requesting 500,000 for pickleball courts, which is when they first brought up the Carroll Park uh, upgrade 2 years ago, it was in three parts, I think. One was the playground, one was the parking area, which is frequently kind of eroded and has large potholes. And then the third thing was creating a pickleball area and potentially resurfacing the tennis courts. They temporarily created pickleball courts on the basketball court, which have been used quite a bit, I think, over the last year, and people have been relatively happy with. So I have to reach out to Mark and get some information about this. But that was the surprise about why they're requesting 500,000. It seemed like more than had been indicated in the past in terms of what the new thoughts about the pickleball courts was suggest. The original proposal had been to place the pickleball courts right behind the basketball court, right behind the tennis courts, which would have involved taking down a lot of trees along the path there to the playground. I think they're still intending to use the area that the basketball court is currently occupied. Whether or not they'll I thought they were going to maintain the basketball court and co-locate the pickleball courts, but I'm trying to find out, arrange a time to meet with Mark to find out more about it.
Kevin, this didn't come up at all when we met with them, did it?
No, albeit I think we were in the discussion, it was a focus on operating budget, not capital budget. So I don't know if this was just something that wasn't necessarily in the scope of the conversation.
Oh, see, that's
Or
well, that gets back to where I don't understand why this capital and
Yep.
Warrant is so separated. I mean, that's weird to go meet with a park and rec guy and not have him talk about a $500,000 capex
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah.
Um,
I know he
the
had
only thing that
talked
came up when
about
we met
wanting
with them
to,
was, which I was in favor of, was just like modest improvements to what's existing. Like just to, I mean, we use it, so just
yeah,
clear cut the trees back a little farther, put up maybe a better fence. There's still the ball still goes into the gravel parking lot quite a bit, so you're jumping the telephone pole that's there. And I mean, but I mean,
yeah.
not nowhere nears. I mean, we're talking $20,000 or something like that.
No, yeah, I mean, we did talk about the desire to make improvements there, but he didn't
Yeah,
mention a dollar figure, and it certainly wasn't something where I would have anticipated that big of a request based on the
yeah,
conversation.
that's weird.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I will after I meet with them to talk about the capital request, I'll let you know. But it did seem a little breathtaking. Most of the other capital requests that were on the list that Barry had were not surprising. I do think uh, Kevin is going to end up having to scale back his request because maybe two-thirds of the capital budget it belongs to DPW this year. Um, the fire chief is requesting $90,000 for something related to one of the engines. The police chief has uh, uh, has a patrol car and some kind of other radio equipment, but nothing major. Really comes down to the schools have very little this year. Some shows up next year and the year after, but this year the neither the regional schools nor the Dover schools have uh, I think anything on the capital budget. So it's really DPW uh, and Parks and Rec primarily. All right, so
Um, as far as other updates,
yeah,
I met with Chris and Joanne as we as part of sort of investment long-term sort of interaction. The general takeaway was that Joanne's done a lot of work in order to go through accounts from what she inherited, try to make sure we're not paying fees where possible, that where funds can be earning interest, because there is at least a certain degree of balance in many of the accounts, trying to earn interest at least at money market rates. She's broadly in, she said, the seventh inning of that process. So still working her way through what was a lot of accounts and rather labyrinthine structure. At the same point in time, also consolidating a lot of the trust relationships and stabilization funds at Rockland Bank before they were distributed a whole bunch of other institutions and narrowing it down to a more concentrated approach. And I think this gets to the town has not necessarily had a well-developed financial policy. So making sure that something gets put in place, and the Collins Foundation actually did work on something back pre-2020 that never necessarily got fully implemented. So there's at least a draft document that existed from that point in time. And so we'll be taking a look at it in order to hopefully work with them over time to more formalize the process and the policies for the town.
great.
Hey, Gavin, can I ask a question? I don't know if you know the answer, but Seems like most of the liquidity of the town is in different banks, moving around in money markets and things like that. Is it an accepted practice for a city or town to understand what their cash flow is and have some sort of laddered portfolio of treasury securities and just be done with all this bank stuff? Have a brokerage account that would just be government instruments that match up with maturities when she's going to need to draw down on and take a little bit of a benefit of a slightly longer term yield.
Uh, Dave might be better positioned to talk on that. To be fair, I think Joanne's just getting her hands around all the accounts the town has. And I think there are a number of different separate accounts the town does have to have. I think there certainly was a profusion that they're trying to consolidate down to a more reasonable number. But what the regulatory framework associated with each of those accounts, what you can and can't do, um, I think those are good questions to ask because long term simplicity I think is important.
Yeah.
Uh, and if there's ways to do things that are more efficient, less complicated, and still making sure the town earns interest when it can earn interest, I think we certainly should. But uh, I'm not aware of what the town can and can't do yet on those accounts and exactly where it's positioned on that front. I know her priority though was just we shouldn't be paying fees, and if there's ways to get something at least close to money market rates, we should be getting at least close to money market rates, not token amounts of interest otherwise.
But she doesn't have to maintain immediate liquidity, does she?
Depends on what accounts you're talking about, Marty. So
No.
yes, there's a lot of current liquidity for just accounts payable and receivable.
Yeah. No, what I'm thinking is, 30 to 180 day maturity treasury bills, notes.
She's doing those with CDs right now, brokerage account CDs. They actually have about 20 basis point higher yields right now than U.S. Treasuries.
The bank CDs?
Yeah.
Really?
So we have gone from approximately 75 or 80 banks 2 or 3 years ago to less than a half dozen right now.
Uh-huh.
It is getting concentrated at Rockland. Joanne has dismissed UBS and Bank of New York Mellon
Yeah.
and moved those monies over. And she's looking at Bartholomew right now because Bartholomew's attitude when we did the bond issuance for the community center, and no one told the town that you should spend the bond proceeds first and your free cash later. We did the opposite. We spent the free cash and left it at Bartholomew, and we had to write a check to the federal government for about $1.1 million because we earned too much interest and they capped the arbitrage.
Does
So
she have
that's
to keep does she have to keep the CDs under $100,000? Or she's putting in more than 100,000 in individual banks?
um, it's 250, isn't it? For the you
Uh,
talking about the
yeah,
FDIC
yeah, the
insurance limit?
FDIC. Yeah.
So it depends on the account. So we're using one bank, but there are going to be multiple accounts because you'll get that FDIC insurance on each registration. So the library and their accounts, that's 250, and then cemetery, whatever they have, and go right down the line. So there will be individual accounts there, but we've consolidated into basically Rockland Trust because of those 75 to 80 banks, 95% of them were paying 0.1% or less.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now we're earning money market rates and we're talking about tens of millions of dollars.
Do
So,
each of
go
those
ahead.
departments has a separate tax ID number?
I don't believe it's a separate tax ID number. No, I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer.
As one of those banks fails, I hope somebody knows the answer.
But that was Gavin and I talked about Silicon Valley Bank having bought Boston Private, and when that went out, it was one heck of a scramble for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's why
Um,
treasuries are usually nicer if you're
uh,
talking that amount of money.
exactly. But if you're spreading out your investments into diversifying either a portfolio of short-term CDs and or treasuries. Um, she's doing that, but also the money market is also earning 3 point something. So it's not like you're earning 0.01%. You're earning, let's say, 3.3%.
Yeah. There's credit risk in the money market fund too.
There is, I do not know if it's a government money market fund or just a general. I can ask Joanne.
I would imagine the state must have restrictions, right, in terms of what she can do. It's not just whatever you feel like doing.
Yeah, and again, it depends on what bucket of money you're talking about. OPEB is treated very differently from trusts versus the general funds. And I'm sure there's other categories, but you get the idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so last thing I just wanted to encourage is that in January people check in. I've gotten honestly quite favorable comments from people about how diligently the liaison activity has been. I think compared to 2 or 3 years ago, the liaisons have been really proactive, and it's been great. People are in the town are profoundly appreciative. I would just encourage you to check in January, particularly around the issue of whether people are having issues around the formulating their presentations, and whether there's any way we can assist them. Uh, I'm starting to work on a tentative schedule for the 3 days that we've got presentations occurring. So hopefully we'll have that settled early in January by the time of the next meeting. And then, again, if you reach out to the people you've been in contact with already, then just let them know that we are happy to kind of answer questions about the presentation and what we're looking for. I think that would be helpful to them.
Has Chris standardized or distributed some form of template yet on that front?
Chris has been sick so much the last few weeks that I think he's really had trouble kind of just maintaining his presence.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to him a day or so ago and try and find out. I know he's got the template that you prepared, and he let me know that he was distributing it. So
Okay.
I'm assuming people have gotten it, but uh, I'm not completely confident just because he's been out so much.
Okay.
I think he's finally starting to feel better. Is that correct, Dave?
As of yesterday, yes, but today he's actually got a new sinus infection and is
Right.
going back to his doctor.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him. He's gone through the ringer.
So, I know about 3 other people who've had similar kind of illnesses, all lasting about the same duration of time. So, I don't. I mean, I think it's been horrible, but he's definitely not alone in having experienced this. There must be some horrible virus that went around.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I know he's distributed I know he's got the template, and I believe he's distributed it and has at least talked to people about what we're going to be looking for.
Do you have any update on the citizens petition at all?
No, I don't. It's on my list to email Felicia about tomorrow. So I'll see if I can get anything from her. I'll let you know.
Okay, and I can stop in and find her too if you
Yeah.
need me.
Have any been filed yet?
I think they should have to have been submitted.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I had. It's a little bit later than I wanted, but next meeting will be the 5th, the 7th, and let me know if there are issues that come up in the meeting. Otherwise, have a good holiday. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I
So
motion.
moved.
Great. Second?
Second.
Great. Mish,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Sarah,
Aye.
Marty,
Yes.
Simone,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
and I'm definitely a yes. All right, great. Thank you very much.
Have
Thanks,
a wonderful
everybody.
holiday
Yep.
season, everyone.
Happy
Yes,
holidays.
absolutely. Take care.
Bye-bye.